Welcome to the Your Message Received podcast. And now, taking your message to the finish line, your host, John Duffin.
Hey folks, John Duffin here, Duffin Media. Welcome back to another episode of Your Message Received. Your Message Received is the home, the place, the platform to help you find your best, most true, authentic business voice. Hell, why not make it your own true, authentic voice? Get what you want, find what you need, improve your results. Sure, we'll get you billions of dollars. You'll find the person of your dreams. All right, maybe we can't guarantee those last two. But the fact is, a lot of the other stuff we feel very confident about. And folks, we love the fact you keep listening, keep watching, whether it's on YouTube or listening on Spotify, Apple, anywhere you're getting your podcasts, we are there. Folks, the reason we are able to throw those lofty claims is because we bring people on here who walk the walk. One of the great platforms that I've gotten the privilege of utilizing is a platform called Podmatch. Today's guest, Adam Levine, I was lucky enough to find via Podmatch. By the way, Adam, who happens to be a high-performance coach, which to me builds systems, strategies, utilizing your biology for maximum performance improvement. Adam, welcome to the show. It is great to have you here.
John, thank you so much for having me. Much appreciated.
I'm very excited. And it's one of these things we were talking before we hit record. And one of the reasons it matters so much to me, like I said, is that there's a myriad of business coaches, high performance coaches. There's a myriad of people that are coming in so many different directions as it relates to creating courses and implementing strategies. And I told Adam right before, the very first word that I saw that I thought was very impressive, and maybe it's because I was terrible at biology in high school, and I still think I get like chills in a bad way, but it was implementing biology. So right off the bat, I'm assuming you're not a biologist.
Far from it. Not.
Why did you think it was important to head in the direction of the physicality as it worked for you?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think that even in general, I've always had a passion for self-improvement, and always enjoyed that span of it, whether it's books or videos. I always ate it up. And I think for many years, I found personally that there were a lot of great, as I say, personality-based coaches that are out there. And I'd get that like high, right? I have that video and I'm like, in the moment, I'm getting that, I'm going to start using some neuroscience terms. I'm getting those squirts of dopamine and I felt really good. But then the long-lasting sustainability wasn't there. It's like it was great, but what I really found, to kind of fast forward a little bit, is that I felt like a lot of the coaching that I took, which I say is very personality, psychological based, really personally for me never really motivated me. I felt like you got to just do it because you have to do it. It felt like it was the grind. I had to use something as I call willpower. And it wasn't helping. And then suddenly, how I got into this, honestly, I'm not sure if you're familiar with someone by the name of Stephen Kotler, but he has a company that he founded called the Flow Research Collective. I actually did his training. I did two of his trainings. One was called Zero to Dangerous. The other one is how I got certified as a performance coach. And that's really what lifted it up. And it was learning about how to maximize your biology, particularly how to access flow states on demand. Flow states in of itself is really, as you may know it, as runner's high, in the zone, or even if you're a jazz musician, you're in the pocket. So these are things that, at least for me, and I think for most people that aren't familiar, as I say, life is rolling the dice. And then it's like life is spitting where you are, and then you're moving ahead rather than you rolling the dice and you determining it. That's how I looked at my life before getting into this. So yeah, there are times that I would quote unquote be in flow because I'm naturally liking it, but I never really knew when I was in it, when I was out. Now it's really the complete inverse of that, where it's really understanding the mechanistic triggers that access flow. And then, it's the 80-20 rule. It's as exactly what we'll get into today, hopefully, is learning to maximize biology. And two things that happened over the last few years for me was that by sort of looking at it from that perspective and going underneath the psychology of it by starting with biology, the one thing that happened to me, like you said, it was really cool. And I think that I can't say that everyone likes it, but I think for the population of people that do like it or haven't found it yet, what I think it's really cool is that right there, that in of itself was something that was completely, as I call, autotelic. That was that absolutely increased my motivation. So autotelic means something that happens unconsciously, that it's not a push, but you just naturally do it. So just like you enjoy podcasts, you wouldn't do it. But if you didn't like it, like, oh crap, I got to do it. That's something that's not autotelic. So by understanding the biology right there, boom, that's something that just increased my intrinsic motivation to understand that.
So you've been, like I said, as a business professional, you've been in advertising, you've been in finance. What pushed you? What was like in your mind, whether it's professional or personal, that you felt, because you are, as you've already described, in what you've done, a student. And so you're a student. What was drawing you to those things in the first place?
Yeah, so I think two things, right? Yes, I worked in advertising. I still work, and I'm sure you know from LinkedIn, but yeah, I actually still work in finance. I
Yeah.
work at a prestigious firm. I work in risk management.
Yep.
And I just those things in of itself, outside of what I do, I just love. I think that answers your question. I think
Oh, yeah.
advertising was the creative set. Risk management, I've always wanted to do trading, but then now realize I do like what I do and I thought I wanted to be a trader. So those are cool things. But then what do those two things ultimately have in common? It's being in corporate America. It's also very cutthroat cultures and competitiveness. So it's funny how where I am today, and with my coaching company is InterX Lab, I never thought 2 years ago I'd be a coach. So why did I get my certification? Why did I continue with it? Because I always, even to this day, feel like I wanted to game up from other people. What did I need to do to level up my game? And this is an area that a lot of people don't know about. And I wanted to really have the edge over my competition. So when I go to work every day, yes, a lot of people are great. A lot of people have leadership experience, but this is a very new area that a lot of people haven't gotten into. So I initially got my coaching certification because coaching in of itself is not just to become a coach. A lot of leaders who are just want to work in corporate America could also be coaching. The term coaching that people use is coach your employees. Well, are they really coaching? I don't know, but the term is thrown around a little bit more than I think it should be. But that was the honest, selfish reason why I did it. Was because I felt like I wanted to continue learning, knowing that I thought this was amazing. I was eating it up. And I just was like, I want more of it. I want more, until I hit a point where I'm like, it's not just about me. I actually want to help people. So it kind of went past me to say that, like, I really want to just be of service to others. So that's kind of how my entire career sort of morphed, where I still like corporate America.
Sure.
In tandem, I love helping other people, but also realizing that the more I coach, the more it's also helping me in the workplace as I lead and everything else. So it's a way for me to self-coach as well. So rather than hiring a coach, which, yes, is very pricey, at least I can at any point go back to my videos, go back to the source, and know exactly what I need to do to assess and audit my own pain points.
Okay, that part's great. And so here's my first follow-up is, with that, you talked about that pivoting or morphing into the helping others part. So why do you think that was so?
That's a good question. I think that at first I was like, in the beginning, this is going to be kind of interesting to say, but like, I think originally when I got into this, I was like, oh, I'm gonna game up. I can't wait. I'm gonna have the edge over anyone. And
Sure.
and we'll get into that, but that's okay, right? That's an okay thing. That's part of you can't deny competition. That's part of our primal driver, right? So
Sure.
when you start enjoying that rather than running away from it, you start doing that. But then what happened was, great, now I had all the videos, I completed the course, and I'm
Mhm.
like, now what? And I felt like it wasn't like, I don't know. I'm like, the anticipation and excitement, I'm there and I'm like, now what? And I felt like there was change, but it still felt, I think I hit a point where I felt too selfish for me. And I felt like I need to have more of a greater purpose. And that's what it is. And this is interesting to say, and maybe if we do have time, we'll talk more about it, but I'll start on this note and probably segue into it. But one of the things they say at a very primal evolutionary driver is that if you really want success, you need for a goal, you need to look past yourself and you need to look at something greater. And I say that because if you really think about something where you want to help the poor or help people,
Mhm.
you're actually getting so much neurochemistry. And why is it that I say you need to go past yourself? Because we are social creatures. We were built that way. Why do I say that? If I offended you right now and I said something to you that was
Mhm.
absolutely insulting to the point where you wanted to stop it and say, screw you, I'm out of here. Well, it could happen to anyone. Why? That's the whole point. If we were selfish, then you could do whatever you want to me. It wouldn't mean anything. But we're social creatures of being.
Mhm.
And what the science and neurobiology say is if you can really be intentional and understand that you have a greater purpose, what happens is you're stacking your own interests, but you're always going ahead of it. And I say that because look at how many celebrities ended up committing suicide. Robin Williams, how many people, Heath Ledger, resorting to alcohol. You have all these wealthy people. So my point is that riches don't do anything, right? Riches in of itself, people are not. But when you have something that's greater and more important than you, that's kind of the whole concept of saying at a very biological and sort of evolutionary psychological level that you're really kind of getting a well-balanced diet when it comes to helping yourself and having the ability to want to help your community in the world.
So thank you for that. So here's, and you brought up a couple of things that I'd love to follow up on. You're like Heath Ledger and Robin Williams, what have you. So whether it is depression, anxiety, addiction, alcoholism, whatever, and there's a million other variations too. That's just a couple. I'm not only familiar with a couple, they are innate in me and also people that I know. I ask the question often, it is not the awareness that drives people to get to that place, because the Robin Williams, the Heath Ledgers, the people that are way closer to me as it regards to my own sphere, right? That have been in danger or lost their life or whatever. And sadly, I do know some of those people, that it's not the awareness, it's not an intelligence thing, but often you've got to be in a position where you have been knocked back, because it tends to only matter when you're seeing it from a different vantage point. And what my question is, rather than just a tactic with you, what drew you to that place?
Drew me, if you could just
And to the sense, I
elaborate a bit
realize
more.
I have to help others, so therefore I will.
Right.
It's one thing to know, but it's another to believe and
Right.
feel that you need to, a calling, so to
Right.
speak.
Right. So
What
I
got you to the
got it.
calling
So
point?
I think the best way to answer it, which is actually what I wanted to say, and you're absolutely right. What you're saying is you don't just get there. So what is it in me that kind of drove it? You're absolutely right. So
Right.
I think what happened was, and maybe this is where I'm relating it based on my experience. It's a great question, is that
Mhm.
I was honestly only driven by fame and money. All I cared about was wanting to say, fuck it. I want to make money. I want to make bank, bro. Like I have two wonderful kids. I have a beautiful and
Mhm.
amazing wife. I was like, fuck it. I just want money. And I say that because I had my first big break at a big company during COVID where I
Mhm.
worked at S&P Global within their
Right.
audit risk management function. And I was there and I was like, now what? It was
Mhm.
COVID. And what I really kind of understood, and this is not just me, but the
Mhm.
primal feelings that I had, which is also based on research, is that, and because I did feel this way, my psyche said, focus on money. But then once I sort of got where I wanted to be, I was like, I'm kind of either worse off or I didn't feel that way. And I say this because what the science dictates is that money is a fundamental thing to survive, but it's not actually what your brain needs. Your brain doesn't give a fuck, excuse my French, about money, but what it does care about are those feel-good neurochemicals. Part of getting that is what I call intrinsic motivation and helping others. Guaranteed that a human will actually get more amazing feel-good neurochemistry from actually being a hero, saving people from a plane than they would if they just got a new job with money. They'll get something for it, but it's not enough. And I think that what I found for me, and again, getting back to me, was that I got there, but I felt like it wasn't enough. And when I said to you before, I have a greater purpose that is past me. It's something that made complete sense. I was like, okay, I can't just do this. And I realized I wanted to help people. And I felt like, to sound selfish for a second, my motivation just increased. So what did that kind of say to me? It said that based on the books and the research that I read, that's 100% true. Even it was the fact that you need to find something greater than you. And I say that because a major social bonding chemical is oxytocin. And that is a huge thing. So when you're mad or you're not happy, when you feel bonded, like right now, I'm in what we call group flow. It's because I'm getting that great, amazing oxytocin. But the reason when I said your brain doesn't give a shit about money, maybe for a quick second, but one of the triggers to activate oxytocin is not money. It's a social connection. It's people. It's feeling. So if I have something bigger than me where I want to help the world and I want to help people, and if I want to make money, it's because I want to do that to help others and even serve more of my community. That is what it is. And that's where it is. Like, you can get the dopamine, you can get some of the other ones, but then there's other, like I said, and that's just one of the social bonding chemicals. But if you don't have that, your ship sort of has fuel, but it's going to crap out here and there. So I sort of mixing the science, but like I said, I think that's what drove me, is the fact that I initially did it for money, saying that's all I wanted. But then after reading the research and then realizing that this really isn't enough for ultimate sustainable motivation.
How old were the kids when you were starting to have you? I got these two beautiful kids. I'm married with. How old were the kids when you were going through that sort of?
Yeah, I'm just
revelation?
thinking right now. So right now they're 8 and 5. So I probably like at 5 and 2. So very new. And again, COVID was very new to everyone. And I think that, listen, I definitely, depression hit. I think it hit a lot of people. Everyone's like, what the hell? And then, not to mention, I started a new job. And then working from home 24/7, I never did it. So I think that I was very also distracted, not focused, and all that stuff. And I was following my curiosity to find something. And then, like I said, I was like, whoa, this looks really cool. Finding something that can maximize your biology, having the ability to put 40 hours in 2 or 3 days versus working a typical 40. Yeah, like, this really looks cool. I'm game. And I was like, okay, worst case scenario, I lose my money, but all or nothing makes sense. And I did it, and it was the best decision I ever made. And that's how a lot of it, for me, like I said, at least stacked up.
I love it. So speaking of stacking up, so as it goes, you get that sense that this is the right thing. Talk to me in regards to one or two specifics that you felt or that changed as a result of first you going through the process, the physicality of it, right?
Right.
What were one or two things that changed for you specifically? And more importantly, what did you do to affect that change?
Let's see. I think one of the things that I knew, so I mean, the one thing was curiosity. I was like, wow, wait, that is something that is a primal driver. So like, that's something that you naturally do over anything. I'm curious for this. That's how we survive.
Right.
So I doubled down more on curiosity following it, because curiosity is what I call, there's more to it than that, but at a very fundamental level, you're getting focused for free by curiosity. If you're curious about something, you're nodding your head, which means you get it.
But I love the term "focus for free." That's just a cool choice.
But that's what I mean by leveraging your biology, and that's what I'm saying. Willpower is important, but learn to go through all of the steps through biology before resorting to willpower.
Yes.
For me, it was the opposite. I would always go to willpower and I'd fucking burn out. And there was nothing. I never learned how to grit. And that's what it was. It's learning to maximize my own biology before I would need to maybe do that big thing. Like if I, which I'm not, but if I wanted to climb the the Himalayas, I don't fucking know what I did. But if someone said you're going to make $5 million tomorrow, I would try to do everything I could in my power to maximize my biology. And most likely at some point, if I don't die, it would then be hitting hitting my willpower. But the second thing I do want to say that really hit me was reading. So one of the other things that I just absolutely hated was reading. I was never a reader. Ooh. And one of the things that Stephen said, which I just to this day, I've literally read. I wish I could show you my thing.
So is this from the book or the course? So as I said, it's The Art of Impossible.
This is from The Art of Impossible in the course. So post course, I've read like 9 books in the last 6 months.
And you're saying, and I'm not a reader, and I didn't mean to talk over you.
Yes, not at all.
And then you go to reading 9 books.
So one of the I think a lot of it's NLP based on the words that you use. But one of the terms that he uses is skill acquisition, and he says that part of like creativity is linking two disparate ideas, pattern recognition. We have built-in pattern recognition systems, things that I've always known innately, where it's like, oh shit, I've done this, I've done that. And one of the things that he said, and I felt like reading was always a grind where I would immediately be using my willpower. But one of the things that Stephen says, which is true, is that the biggest way that he learned was from those aha moments. So when you're reading a book and you get so excited, what's actually going on underneath is that you're getting dopamine. So most likely your brain is tagging something. So you could be reading 150 pages in the last hour. But if I said to you, Adam, what do you remember from the 150? Most likely it's going to be those what I call being in flow states. So immediately that was like, oh my God, how many times have I had those peak moments where I'm like, oh my God. So I felt like every time I read, the reason that was holding me back was I was never good at comprehending a book. I would not understand. These are all my limited beliefs until he said, wait a minute, it's for the dopamine. So what was happening was, who gives a shit? If I don't understand the first 10 pages, keep on moving. And I don't do that. If I don't understand something, I will go back. I'll go back. But he's like, keep on doing it. And the reason I'm saying this is that during that time when I read my first book, I probably focus wasn't there, but there were times where I was getting the dope. Oh my God, I was getting an insight moment, but I didn't go back. I was like, fuck it. I bought 10 more books because I was so excited. Guess what happened? I put the first book down. I was ready for the second one, but guess what? My reading got better. There was a neural feedback loop and it got tighter and tighter. So now I could fully understand a book and I could, when I say 150, it probably took me 4 months to read 150 pages.
Yeah.
Now I could literally read 150 pages in a day and a half.
Okay. So
that's crazy.
It is crazy. And it's
part of hitting the impossible.
So this part to me is significant in terms of also in the mantra of helping others. Repeat for me one more time. I understand the dopamine part, but go back to me with the keep reading it. What was changing for you in terms of, all right, it took me 4 months. I get that, by the way. Yeah. I really get that and can relate to it. The 4 months to read a book, or all the books I've started and then just sit. Yeah. But what I really want to know is, what is the technique that pushed you past that to get you to reading 9 books a month? Going through that.
Got it. So one of the things that I think Stephen said, and I think I just personally relate to him. And one of the things that he said was, and he said, I'm a fucking insane reader. I have 8 or 9 books all over. And one of the things he says that he does is he would read, his goal was 25 pages a day, no matter what.
Which is aggressive, by the way. That's an aggressive goal.
Now, one of the reasons he's like, well, why did you do it? Because he's like, I want to be 25 pages smarter than my other competition. So the more that I read, my competition isn't. And part of the way of getting creativity is skills acquisition. So one of the terms that he likes, this is what I mean by feeding your unconscious. And this is where we're getting more into the science, which I won't. But another term for reading, and it doesn't have to be reading, it's other aspects as well, that it just kind of, and he's also a journalist, so this is where a lot of it came into. But I think one of the terms he talks about is learning could be anything. It could be videos, but one of the terms he uses is loading your pattern recognition. So the more that you just intake, the more that you will get creative ideas, because your creativity is another way for survival. It's oh my God, wait, I don't have a house. What do I need to do? Your mind thinks about the next thing. That's amazing. That is when people say superpower, we have that. How do you double down on that? But you get better when you learn. It's skill acquisition. Cavemen, people that evolved. How did you learn to build a fire to a building? They learned over time. And those are the things that I was essentially doing, is wrapping all that up into one. And that's really what diabolically got me intrinsically, amazingly interested in reading, for that reason, loading up, feeding the pattern recognition, not worrying about whether or not I understand the first 10 pages. And we'll get more into my other goals.
Yeah.
It's creativity. It's how can I become an Elon Musk? And it's just slow. I have 50 other books on the shelf. When I'm on the train, what do? I read. I don't want to waste time being on my cell phone. I could be on Facebook, and guess what? 5 years from now, Facebook may not even be around anymore. So what I've learned is my life is a fixed container, which I didn't take. I took from Cal Newport from Deep Work, and he says, think of your life as a box container of hours. When you wake up to your night, right? You need sleep, but that's your time. And I think a lot of times people don't. When I think of time management, people bullshit. I do it still to this day. But what happens is you're losing the quality of dopamine by keep on getting a text message, keep on getting the ring. And what happens is that's why most people don't. And I just think that a lot of these other principles, coupled with the books, realize that time is precious. So I want to maximize the most I have in an hour. So when I'm home at 8 to 9, quality time with family, that right there, oxytocin, and not being selfish, but that's my family. That's one thing. But then I could say to myself, well, nothing's on TV. I could watch a rerun of Saved by the Bell, which, yes, I love it, or something else that I've seen 100 times. But why? Why not read a book where that book can give me the next $1 million idea, or I'm feeding my pattern recognition for something bigger?
So, love the Saved by the Bell reference, by the way. That not a damn thing wrong with that in my world. So I think that part is great. But here's what I'm realizing. In terms, as you said, getting to some of the techniques, let's do so. But I wanted to at least have some sort of a bridge, because to me, what's resonating is this. You realized a couple of things, it seems like, in your explanations, which is great. You came to a couple of, and more than a couple, but I'm going to just say a couple that are really jumping at me right now, which is, number one, the sense that you could break through certain things. And there was a reason for you to do so. And I love that, because that answered the question. What drove you to get to that place? Here's what I want to be able to know. You're a tactical guy, and that was the thing that drew. The biology part mattered to me because it's really specific, and you can tap into, impulsive is not the word I want, but things that are exact. One of the things that's beautiful about a biology standpoint is the precision and exactness of it. But here's my question, which is, you knew that this worked for you.
Correct.
And you knew that this is like, you know what? I realize that if I'm helping others, that I'll be able to get to this better place. Yeah. But what I haven't figured out yet, and this is why I'm excited, is the sense, so why should it matter to somebody else?
I mean, that's a valid question. I mean, the first thing that I
know why it matters to you.
Yeah, what matters to me.
So why should this matter to me?
But I mean, I look at it like this. I was always the king of laziness, and I realized that nothing else worked. And if I know this could work for me, it will work for everyone else. I know that's a typical thing that everyone says, but I had to start out with the gate saying that I found something. And what I would say is to your viewers out there, anyone else who plans to watch this podcast now or a million years to come, when there's a time capsule, is that I call it my unique avatar. There are definitely people that are probably similar to me. So right there, boom, those are people. There might be people on the other side of it where it may not be. And the reason again why it applies to them is this, and to this day I still like it, is
Mhm.
find techniques, because so what happens is if you don't know any of this stuff, your mind, and someone's like, good job, you did amazing, most likely they went right to willpower. But what happens is over time, what do you think happens after willpower? You burn out.
Oh,
So it's
you get
possible that
bored.
most
You just get
people,
bored and quit. You
so
know.
what happens with most people is that they burn out, they stop, and they do it again. But
Mhm.
imagine just keep on building flow and what I call flow infused goals, and just one thing at a time. And what happens over time is that your brain is building neuroplasticity
Mhm.
to never go to burnout. And what happens is that when I say leveraging your biology to an
Mhm.
extent, and again, there's many different principles that are tied to it, to the most basic, to some of the things that I've mentioned. And by understanding it again from that principle, you realize that by understanding evolution, right? We were born and we have certain mechanisms that work for us. And people just forget, or the reason that it worked well for the cavemen is because they didn't have anything. They didn't have TV. So now our brains are addicts of things that our brain wants. But
Mhm.
say that's really what it would be, why it would work for other people, is because you're getting down to the science. I think a lot of the times people, and I don't want to start knocking what other people believe, and I'm not going to go
No
there,
need.
but
No need.
on a very spiritual level, I think a lot of people, such as myself, were like, this may work or may not work. It's a psychological move, like life coaching, right?
Mhm.
Well, why do it? Think of the universe. The universe will come to you, manifest destiny, right? Whatever I comes back to me. Sure, I'm not going to start going there, but I can tell you what's actually going on, and I could debunk the science for you.
Mhm.
But what I'm trying to say is that that's where we are. It's either you're on the biology or you're other side of it. And I feel like the other side is like hoping and wanting for something to come that may come, because yes, you're manifesting it, you are. And the reason you are doing that, just for the science, is because you're forming new neurochemicals. So now more of that autotelicism is coming to you. And I don't want to start knocking this out for other people, but the reason I say this is that if you want to achieve something faster, go right to the biology. We're human beings.
Mhm. So
It's in the
that
science.
part's great. And I think, and to me, that's what got my attention, because if I know that the physicality is reliable, or I'll use two different words, desirable and achievable.
Yep.
So I believe that. And that's part of what, like, in terms of the
Right.
training that I do as it regards to communications. The
Yeah.
reason I incorporate the physiology in the is it's reliable,
Yep.
it's
Yes.
desirable, and it's achievable. And
I love
so if
those
I
words.
can be like, you know what,
Right.
if I tap into this,
Yeah.
this is likely going to work consistently,
Correct.
and I'm going to like it. So why don't? And that's what it's like. So give me an
Right.
example of what you now have manifested based upon the coursework, based upon your own studies, based upon the beauty, because it's happened to me,
Right.
of banging my head a couple of times and then figuring, oh, that ain't it. Oh, this is.
Right.
Give me a couple of examples of techniques that you've utilized and shared with others that have moved the needle in regards to
Fast.
achieving a result. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think the first thing, I can't, I'm not to get into the full details of it, but again, it's something that I mentioned earlier on to you was flow states, right?
Yep.
Getting in the
Let's talk
zone.
about it.
So life, like I said, for me at least, and I'm going to use it. I don't want to start making generalizations, but I felt like for me unconsciously, I felt like life was throwing the dice for me to be in that flow state, because I'm like, oh shit, I like this.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's the inverse where I'm throwing the dice and it's not loaded. And I say that because if you think about it, and I'm probably going to be missing a few of them, but there's certain triggers that fundamentally get into it. And most of the time, yes, it's happened to all of us because they've already been there and they've been
Okay.
there without you knowing it. But some of those triggers that are there is risk. So
Mm-hmm.
a risk we know is one fact is, and this is all based on science, but you have
Yep.
risk, you have clear goals, you have immediate feedback, you have what we call the challenge skills ratio.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I'm missing a few others. Forgive me. I said clear goals.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Yeah, but you
trying.
nailed a lot of them. So
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I
Let's
ain't
just.
beating you up.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I know,
Eh,
I know. There's actually, to be honest with you, there's 12 of them, and and just going into them if I see, you're like, oh shit, that makes sense. Yeah, like if you're gonna decide to run through a red light, almost getting hit by a car,
Mhm.
your body's feeling something. And
Yes.
now, when you start doing that, and again, I'm sorry I couldn't do some of the other ones at the moment. Oh, novelty. So novelty is another flow trigger. So when you start intentionally understanding them,
Mhm.
you can go to yourself right before you're about to do a time block and say, okay, how many of these triggers are right here now, or what
Mhm.
do I need to do it? Or what goal, when I say flow infused, how many of these triggers am I leveraging? So for example, if I want to, what's a strategy? I'm going to use something like saliency and novelty. It's something that our brains love. We all
Mhm.
like it. You said something before. You do the same thing. Johnny is going to either quit or do it. So if you want to read a book,
Mhm.
well, most of the time we're creatures of habit. No one's going to deny that. So you're going to either sit in the same place or you're going to go to your house. But by going across the street and sitting under a tree,
Mhm.
you've already maximized your biology, because now what's happened is you're getting
Mhm.
saliency. So your brain is already creating dopamine. And by that dopamine, what happens during flow is that skills acquisition goes up 400%. So
Mhm.
that's the other thing. If I'm in a flow state when I'm reading versus someone who doesn't know this, I'm reading 150 pages, but I'm also learning at more of a bulk capacity than someone who's not. All of the famous Olympic athletes, whether they know it or not, Simone Biles, they were all in flow. So when you master, and I said
Mhm.
challenge skills, it means that you're not, you understand that there's the intersection between anxiety and challenge. So if you do something that's exceeding your challenge, you're going to get anxious.
Mhm.
But if you keep on hitting the needle where you're stretching, they say Mihai Csikszentmihalyi is the founder of Flow, and he said if you can stretch but not snap by going 4%. So if you're in flow and you're in this mastery and you constantly are raising
Mhm.
the needle, you'll do that. So a lot of these are what I call psychological triggers, but by putting them in place, that's a way to do that. In the beginning, it's hard, but over time, it will become unconscious. So that probably half the time I could be in a flow state and not realize. Now, does it mean that I'm going to make $1 million tomorrow? No, but it also means that I'm also, every time that I'm in that state with whatever I'm doing, I'm also going to be continuously leveling up, which is what I've seen personally in my own results. So here's an example: risk, because I just thought of this. I'm like, how the hell is
Great.
risk? Right? I'm not jumping out of a plane. So for some people, given their jobs, but if you're a knowledge worker in corporate America, one of the immediate things that I do for risk is build in those high consequences. If I don't submit this to my boss, what's the worst thing that can happen? Well, I could lose my job. I may not get the bonus. Like those are things, and those are things that we all think about. And I'm not saying to make you go fucking crazy, but by immediately putting in high consequences stacked with other things, clear goals, you're a fucking badass. So by
Why?
understanding,
Why are you? Why? When you say, when I stack like this, you're
because, well, I
badass.
mean, again,
Why? For what
well, because
reason?
fundamentally, this is so the why is that it's not for me, it's what my biology needs. On a very
Mhm.
neurobiological level, your brain is fully primed. If your brain doesn't give a
I like
shit
this stuff.
and I'm not focused, I could try to do my work, but
Right.
what you ever hear from writers, I'm in writer's block. Well, why?
Yes.
And by doing this, what happens is, so Elon Musk and others, that's what creativity is in a nutshell. When people get those aha insights, it's because they were in flow. One of the other tips is what we call reducing cognitive load. Here's the biggest aha
Wait a minute. Say
moment,
it
right?
again. Reducing
We're lowering cognitive load. So
load. Thank you.
the more decision making that you have to do makes it
Mhm.
harder. And I'm going to give you an example. The late Steve Jobs.
Okay.
What did he wear?
No, he had one outfit that he wore
Why?
pretty much every day.
But he
Well,
did that purposely
mhm.
because there are many reasons. But I'll
Yeah.
give you the most simplest one, which
Mhm.
is true. He was a creative guy. He wanted those faculties to be on. So he
Mhm.
literally had Isaac Mizrahi give him the same outfit every day. He didn't want to think about it. So that was one part of his life
Mhm.
that he did it. So what you're doing is it's a way of dialing up creativity. We call it, this is important before you jump in, it's called VUCA. It's volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And I say that because if you're lowering cognitive load in one area, then you can increase creativity. And I'm going to give you one more, and then we could jump into it.
Yep.
Think of Silicon Valley. The
Mhm.
thing about Silicon Valley is that the actual town itself is boring as shit. It
Mhm.
looks like a 1950s Stepford town. But if you go into a Google or anything, it looks like fucking Disney World. Why? They purposely design that because when their workers are outside, they're lowering cognitive load. If you have too much overstimulation, you're not creating. So that's an example of how Silicon Valley by environment was designed. They wanted to do that. And think about it. All of the major $1 million players are all in Silicon Valley. So this is an example of what I mean by, well, what do you need? If you're too crazy, then you need like if you are a creative person, but you're never getting shit done, then most likely it's because you're not organized and you're here. So it's understanding, like when people say play into your weaknesses, I hate that because it doesn't mean it. But if I say dialing up creativity, that's what I mean by saying, where are you? So if you're not a creative person, most likely it's because you need to change it up a little bit, switch up your daily routine. So once you start doing that and you start playing around with those chemicals, that's how a lot of these things will really work. And that's, again, another aspect of how you leverage. There's tons of things, but I think everything that I've addressed, I would say, are techniques and little nuances of things of how you're maximizing your biology. It's literally in front of you without even knowing it.
So I love that you just said that. And that's beautiful, by the way, that really specific. And thank you. So just a couple more thoughts, which is number one, that several of the examples, Silicon Valley, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, while they're looked at as successes, they were all looked at as out there. And so the first question is not a right or wrong question. It's not that. It's more of, you can't question the tangible levels of success of any of those three individuals. You can't question it. Right. It's there. It's documented. It's easy to see. Why do you think so many people push back, not just from those examples, but those types? It's like, oh, that ain't, no. That's he's weird. That's out there. You know what I mean? Why do you think the pushback?
But see, that's interesting. And I'm going to answer your question because I'm the opposite. It's like, I want to be Elon Musk, right?
That's why I'm asking. You know what I mean?
So if we're answering the same question, maybe I could try to answer it from mine and see if it's answering your question. Yeah. I think because this to me makes sense. So does yours. But I always said before getting into this, I can never be like Elon Musk. I'm like, a lot of people say they were born that way. Well, what is it that Jeff Bezos has? He was born that way. It's something in his DNA, right? Something that my dad, I love my father, but something, well, they were born that way. Some people are inherently born as geniuses. Now, I'm not going to argue that either. I'm sure there are people that are naturally gifted. We hear that all the time, but those are the limiting beliefs that make me fucking less motivated. And I'm like, what the hell? But what you don't realize is that they're all doing the things that we're doing to an extent. Whether or not they learned it or not, I can't explain it. But intuitively, people may have figured it out on their own. But by starting to understand your biology, that's essentially what all these players are doing. Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, to an extent. So by being more intentional and understanding your biology, what I now know is they're not aliens. There is, last time I checked, no one's flying. Right? No one's flying out of it. So my point is, I could literally be what they are. And that's what I think of being out there, is that I have the keys to the kingdom to do. I literally do. I have the resources to do that and help others. So that my limiting belief is like, this is bullshit. I mean, I'm not saying, well, why am I not tomorrow? We're not that requires probably multiple sessions. But if I answered your question, when you say they're out there, it's like, well, I can't be like them. That was me. But as soon as you say that, the coaching is, that's exactly why you're not doing what they're doing, because you think they're special. They're really not fucking special. And I could tell you different things about them. And I haven't read his book yet, 2 of his books, but Sir Walter Isaacson is an amazing biography. And the 2 that I have on my stack, which I plan on doing, and maybe we can do another session down the road, but 2 of the books that he read, and he's a phenomenal biographer, is Steve Jobs and Elon Musk. If I were to independently do the research, which I'm now autotelically doing, I guarantee you I could figure out the biology of what they're doing. I don't know it specifically, but I can go into that book and understand whether or not they know it or not. So yes, it happens. Why did people become presidents? Why did Obama? Like, I'm not going to start. I'm not a fortune cookie. But what I can tell you is that whoever, if you're like me and you already know, oh, I can be them, great. More power to you. Wonderful. You don't need this. You don't need us. You don't need your books. Continue staying on your soapbox.
Mhm.
Have a great fucking day.
Mhm.
Whatever. But for most people out there that think that they can't be an Elon Musk, and
Mhm.
look, I have those days where my brain's like, shut up, Adam. But yeah, my brain doesn't feel as good at 8 p.m. than it is now, right? If you got me at 9 o'clock, you wouldn't be getting this upbeat person.
A whole different conversation, and me too, by the way. Right.
So my point being is that those are the little things that I'm saying, and I hope that answered your question. So when I say out there,
Mhm.
well, I think I'm not him, but I could easily at some point get there.
I love it.
So
I love the answer. Here was where I was going with it. Thank you. Perfect.
yeah,
Um, I come from a place of curiosity. I don't, I one of the whole reasons I started the podcast was to get out of the judgment zone and into the learning more. I wonder, only wonder, is if, like, as a coach, as I am, as a coach as you are, like, one of the things, you don't need to work with everybody, but wouldn't it be interesting if more people get past the limiting beliefs of each of the three that you referenced, and then you brought up Jeff Bezos. And honestly, you know what the reference I was thinking, which is much less of a deep level, but another person in terms of the predictability of their habits. And is they talk about Jennifer Aniston has had the same lunch for basically the last, I'm going to say now, 25
I know that.
years.
Wow.
She has the same salad when she started on the cast of Friends, and now
Right.
the more
Yeah.
she eats the exact same meal at lunch
Yeah.
every single day. And so, and just look at her. You know what I mean? It's not just her level of success, it's the fact that she has still looks phenomenal.
Absolutely.
And if and the question I want to keep coming back to, maybe it's unanswerable, which is they get the routine. These individuals get and value the routine.
Okay.
I had to leave it because I hated the way I was feeling, but was eating very close to carnivore diet for approximately 2 months.
Yep.
Lost a ton of weight, just fell off, right? But I couldn't stay with it. I'm trying to learn this for me,
Yep.
which is, things. I know things, not just the books, but look at these individuals. You cannot dispute any of this monster success, right? And
Yep.
then in the meantime, you still don't do it. And
Yeah.
that's one of the things that I'm just trying to, in my mind, what is the switch that you think more people should flip to get to a point like, Jesus, it's literally right there in front of you.
Right.
Eat
Yeah.
the
I
same
mean,
lunch every day, and
right.
you could have a killer body, which
Yeah.
would then give you a stronger mind, which would then
Right.
put you in play for that. Do you know what I mean?
So there's two parts to it, right?
Yeah,
One, there's a basic quote that Kotler said, so I can't claim it, but he says
that's okay. I steal everything.
motivation is what gets you into the game. Learning is how you learn the game. Creativity is how you steer.
Mhm.
Flow is what turbo boosts results. That
Boom.
being said,
Love
I'm
that.
I'm gonna table that. But to answer your other question,
Yeah.
one of the things, like I said, this is where it's going to answer your question. But I'm
Mhm.
going to start with this quote:
Great.
Personality doesn't scale,
Mhm.
biology does.
Oh, see,
That in of itself
that's
got to me
big.
because
Yeah.
originally this is what I thought,
Mhm.
right? Before getting into this, personality scales. What did that
Yeah.
mean for me? Oh man, I can't be like Elon Musk. I can't be like them.
Mhm.
So by knowing alone that personality doesn't scale, but biology does, it means there's an untapped resource. And what it also means is you and I are different. The way that you are born and your environment's different than mine.
Sure.
So it's possible that just saying, like Stephen Kotler would say this, but like he grew up and like is an action sports athlete. So his level, he would always say this. I'm using him as an example,
Yeah.
clearly my idol and mentor to an extent, but he says my level of risk is going to be, my tolerance is going to be different than yours. He's like, I hate being in social settings.
Mhm.
You would think that's weird. That's personality. but it doesn't mean that I can. And that's what it means by that. We are all born differently. So also Elon Musk programmed computers when he was 13 years old. There's other things about him, but I'm just saying we could stack it up all. Maybe it was his environment. I don't know, but that's what it means by personality. You do you, you do you. That's what you always hear, but that's what it means by biology stacking. So you're tapping what you already have in your baseline. So the question is, yeah, we're not doubting you're not smart. We're not doubting that I'm not smart. After I felt like I was still lazy as shit. Why? Well, my personality got me enough. I love my parents, my family, got me to college, got a degree. And after that, it didn't stop me. I was in advertising, didn't want to do that anymore, pissed me off. So then I decided to get into accounting and auditing. I got my first break at a Big Four, and I got my first break. Then I went back to grad school for my MBA, and now I work 10 years later. Unfortunately, because I did sign an NDA, I can't name the company I work for now, but I work for one of the major institution.
Sure.
I would never thought I got there, but to an extent, outside of coaching, maybe some of it helped me, but a lot of it's personality. But imagine taking where you're at and then pursuing it at the next level. I think the reason that most people in corporate America are stuck is because they are smart. But what I'm gonna say, and this is a model or theory that I'm time tested, but it's because their personality scaled. But why is it that they're living their 8 to 10 life? And a lot of these people that probably work for Goldman Sachs or a big law firm, why are they not hitting that MD level? Why are they not doing it? There's something missing there. Well, if you were to learn some of this stuff, you know, whoever, me or anyone, you're taking it to the next level by learning biology, the leadership. I could teach you all about servant leadership, and I know all about that stuff. Yes, I'm also an agile coach, but the cool thing that's part of this neuroscience is something called neuroleadership. So if you start understanding what drives the human emotion, that leader will probably have a better chance of getting all of those people together as what we call group flow. Why is it that during let's say a Bon Jovi concert or Beach Boys, why is it everyone's cheering? What is going on in everyone's brain? Well, taking that understanding and now applying it to a corporate America, you're going to have an amazing leader versus someone who's shit. So when you start understanding these fundamentals, and someone were to learn this at a very biological level, you're like, holy crap, exactly. It happens literally under our nose. And that's essentially what you're learning is you're learning what's under the hood, what's under the radar, so that everything is kind of coming out. And that to me, everything that I've just said in the last 5 minutes to me would be to me are the key motivators. That's what gets me. And like I said, I was someone who didn't have the engine or had the engine and stopped. And it still happens. I'm not going to lie and say that life's easy and I get kicked off the horse, but it's also a lot easier for me to develop that resiliency to get back up again and continue writing. I think a lot of people just get stuck. And for many years, I felt like I was a mouse in a maze and I couldn't go anywhere. And like I said, I think a lot of the things I said, that at least worked for me. I can't speak for other people, but I think knowing that there are things that I really never used. Yeah, of course I use curiosity. Obviously, we're all using it, right? You're using it to an extent, but I'm not talking about using it. I'm talking about double downing on that shit. Double downing on it and really leveraging. That's really, you're like, holy crap. Yeah.
So you answered the question, and that's beautiful. Now, I am going to ask, this is a memory and a fading one on my part, but it's going to be, I'm going to want that quote one more time before we sign off. I want it, but not before I acknowledge you. Adam Levine, that helped me from a personal level, and I'm going to hope that helps people that are watching and or listening, because it's so important to me to not just find these paths, these bridges, this sense of becoming really authentic. But if you can get rid of some of the guesswork or the wishing and hoping part that was touched on earlier, and rely on the science and not be afraid of it like I was in high school, that's where I acknowledge you. That the reason you don't fear science is because it's tested, proven, continually tested, and then you realize it works. So anyway, Adam Levine, you got me out of my high school biology phobia, number one. Number two, realize that bridge, that path, that matters. That's what I was talking about. It's not just that it's there, it's how can someone else get there, and you really helped. I know I can drive people to your LinkedIn profile, and I will have that there. In addition to that page, where's the best place to find you?
Yeah, the best place to find me, www.interxlab.com.
interxlab.com. I love it. That will be there too. Folks, we will make this simple. Adam Levine, thank you so much for showing up for me today. That helped tremendously, man. An absolute pleasure. Thanks for being here.
It's my pleasure. And before we cut, though, I do have the quote. Can I share it with you?
Oh, I was going to go right back to, please, yes.
Okay, so I got it. And I wanted to make sure. Motivation is what gets you into this game. Learning is what helps you continue to play. Creativity is how you steer, and flow is how you turbo boost the results beyond all rational standards and reasonable expectations. It's my favorite quote of all time.
Awesome. Now I need one more. Give me the biology quote one more time.
Yeah, that one.
That's my personal favorite.
Yeah, personality doesn't scale, biology scales.
Folks, wait a minute. Say it again. I talked over you.
Personality doesn't scale, biology scales.
Boom. Adam Levine, thanks so much again, man. Powerful stuff.
My pleasure.
Absolutely. Folks, you just heard another episode of Your Message Received. Please keep liking, learning, sharing, watching, listening. Tell all your friends. And keep driving content through your front door. John Duffin, Duffin Media here. Have a great rest of the day, and we will see you soon. Bye.
And now, making its way across the finish line, Your Message Received has been a production of Duffin Media.